In a 10, boyfriend killer. After his research on the Speed Force while at residency in the Flash Museum had gained some traction, Eobard fell in love with a reporter named Rose who had been hired by Central City Science Today to interview him. However, he learned that she was engaged. So his future self interfered with the timeline, killing Rose's fiancé in an attempt to get her to love him, but it didn't work. So he proceeded to kill every man she had started seeing after her fiancé, and eventually every man who she had ever dated at all. So when she steadfastly refused to believe that her fiancé was gone for good, they became platonic friends. However, she continued to just brush off Thawne's romantic advances, eventually retaliating physically when he attempted to kiss her. In anger, his future self traumatized the reporter as a child, rendering her mute and causing her to be institutionalized for the rest of her life. Although, if she was still friends with Eobard while knowing full well that he was just in love with her, she only had him around for attention at that point. Any good person wouldn't be friends with someone who was in love with them if they didn't feel the same. Just saying. I'm causing a few of you to rethink your relationships, huh? In at 9, ripped a letter. This doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me. Not even Batman was safe from this devil. During the events of the Flashpoint comic arc, Barry brought back to Batman a letter from his father, who is alive in the Flashpoint timeline as Batman. It's the only contact that Batman has had with his parents ever since they died, so it would be a shame if something were to happen to it. Oh wait, that's right, Thawne decides to rip it to shreds so that it couldn't even be reassembled. It also didn't help that Thomas was the reason that Thawne was killed in that timeline, so yeah, this was certainly a way to get back at Thomas, even though he was dead in this timeline, which was probably the best way to get revenge. But like, this was still super unnecessary, but I guess it was worth it in the end for Eobard, but it would have messed up Batman real bad. And at 8, Flashpoint. Speaking of Flashpoint, let's talk about the fact that Thawne is in essence the reason that Flashpoint is a thing. I mean, if Thawne had never killed Barry's mother, Barry would never have had to go back to save her, resulting in the Flashpoint timeline. Depending on what version of time travel, or I guess what theory of time travel you believe. Either there was an original timeline where Barry's mother didn't die but he still became the Flash, or the killing of Barry's mother always takes place, resulting in a chicken and the egg scenario where Thawne had to create the Flash to then create himself to then go back and create themselves. Either way, without Thawne, there would be no Flashpoint. His mere existence is what causes Flashpoint to be made, even if Barry is the one who ends up changing the past to save his mother. So I'm gonna count this as something that Thawne did. And at 7, creates the Flash. Aside from the whole killing Barry's mom thing, turning Barry into the Flash, Thawne in season 1 of the Flash TV show did a whole other thing. After being stranded in our present after killing Barry's mother due to a lack of speed, Thawne decides that the only way to get back to his time was to get the Flash's help. So he kills Harrison Wells, takes over his identity, wears his face, and creates the particle accelerator early. 6 years early to be exact, since originally the accelerator explodes in 2020, thus creating a whole new timeline of events. Similar to what Nora does when she helps Barry destroy the Thinker satellite in the season 4 finale, advancing time by 5 years. This time Thawne advanced it by 6 years. Using the face of another man to train Barry, gain his trust, and then ultimately use him to get back to his own time, that's pretty messed up if you ask me. And at 6, lead fascists. In the Crisis on Earth X crossover event from the Arrowverse, we get our world and a wedding of Iris West and Barry Allen interrupted by a group of fascist soldiers from an alternate reality known as Earth X. The classic Germany wins World War II scenario. However, these soldiers are accompanied by evil versions of Green Arrow and Supergirl. The evil version of Flash is missing, however he does appear in the Ray animated series, which this crossover also technically has a crossover with, but they're just brought into real life, same kinda like how they did with the Vixen crossover. But the evil version of the Flash in this crossover, oh you bet your ass it's Thawne. Wearing Wells' face no less. Presumably having killed the Barry of Earth X, Thawne helps Overgirl and Dark Arrow lead a group of fascist soldiers on the attack, nearly taking control of Earth 1 if not for the Justice League that hadn't officially been formed yet. Even the Joker turned on Red Skull when he learned that he was actually a fascist and not some kook in a costume. Reverse Flash is worse than Joker. Confirmed. Halfway through, and at number 5, framed Barry's father. In the process of killing Barry's mother out of anger since he couldn't manage to kill Barry, Thawne ended up framing his father for the murder and gets him sent to prison. Obviously, this wasn't really avoidable because of how time works or whatever, but this still causes Barry a great deal of pain. I mean, that was the ultimate intent, but it's still pretty messed up. And in The Flash Season 2, Thawne confesses to the murder of Nora Allen in an effort to show Barry that even with his dad out of prison, he still won't be happy, which is even more messed up. Especially given that him getting his father out of prison directly results in his death at the hands of Zoom. And then Barry meets his father's doppelganger from Earth 3 known as Jay Garrick. And then another version of his father named Barry Allen from Earth 90 in the Elseworlds crossover. Meeting Jay also sends Barry spiraling into a depression that causes him to create the Flashpoint timeline in the Arrowverse as well, which was already an earlier point, so I think that this definitely earns a spot on the list. In at 4, killed his family. Eobard Thawne was born in 2451. His parents genetically engineered him to be highly intelligent and to have a particular appearance. However, as he grew up, they became concerned about his lack of social skills and tendency to daydream, which was frowned upon in their very regimented society. Hoping that caring for a sibling would help Eobard adjust, his parents had a second son, Robert. Eobard struggled to manage his little brother and chaffed when reprimanded by their parents for his periodic outbursts that were triggered by his frustration. But later down the line, he applied to the Flash Museum to study the Speed Force, but it was rejected, so he started researching it illegally. But then he was caught by Robert, who was an officer in the Science Police. This caused Eobard a great deal of pain, which is understandable given that your brother sent you to prison, so much in fact that a future version of Eobard traveled into the past and prevented Robert from ever being born, which caused him to get the job at the Flash Museum. His knowledge of the Speed Force also caused his peers to nickname him Professor Zoom, but eventually his parents grew concerned and instigated the closure of the Flash Museum. So again, his future self interfered with the timeline and caused the deaths of his parents, allowing him to continue his research. Yeah, that's right. In post-Infinite Crisis, Eobard Thawne killed his family. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, the Spear of Destiny. The Spear of Destiny, or Holy Lance, was an immensely powerful biblical artifact capable of altering reality. It is mentioned in Judeo-Christian religions, and it was an ordinary spear before Roman soldier Longinus used it to pierce the side of Jesus Christ after he died on the cross, resulting in its immense supernatural powers. The second season of the Arrowverse show Legends of Tomorrow revolves around the Legion of Doom, composed of Damien Darhk from a time before he was killed by the Green Arrow, Malcolm Merlyn after just watching Damien die on TV, and Thawne. Captain Cold, Heatwave, and Rip Hunter were also among the members, but the main unholy trinity were these three. They did end up managing to rewrite reality, and in this reality, Eobard Thawne made himself mayor of Central City and the owner of Star Labs. Also in the present time, not 2040 or 2140 or whenever he was born, which is weird. But still wanting status and fame, he would use his genius and company to solve various problems around the world, to which he gained various awards and influence over the world. He also had the demonic speedster that was chasing him, Black Flash, as his personal pet prisoner who constantly struggled to get free of his cell. He also made it so that Ray Palmer, Martin Stein, and Jefferson Jackson worked for him and had miserable lives. He also had Rip Hunter trapped inside the Wave Rider when it was shrunk, and he kept it as like a little statue in his lab, which is that's a whole other can of worms. Penultimately, in at number 2, the Dark Multiverse. The original Flashpoint story sees Barry save his mother and create a whole new world where he isn't the Flash, like I explained in number 8. However, in the Dark Multiverse version of the story, Barry doesn't get his speed back, instead dying when he and Thomas attempt to restore his power. So the vacuum left by the Flash is filled by none other than, you guessed it, Eobard Thawne, who claims to be the Flash and proceeds to try and end the war between the Amazons and Atlanteans by threatening and killing, which obviously just works out in his favor and he becomes a hero. Just kidding. Instead, this causes the Atlanteans and the Amazons to team up and try to destroy America. So as a way to stop this, Thawne runs back in time and creates his own version of this new timeline, crafting it perfectly to his whims, something that the Flash show would later adapt briefly. In the comics though, he prevented the Flash from ever being created, he saved Bruce Wayne as well as Martha and Thomas Wayne, resulting in there being no Batman, and ends up converting everyone every superhero to his purpose, resulting in Thawne having a whole Justice League at his disposal. They even have Reverse Flash symbols on their outfits. Plus, preventing Batman from ever being made, and I say this every time, is the best decision that anyone has ever made as a villain in this universe. If there's no Batman, there's no one that's going to resist you, because Batman is going to resist every single time. And finally, in at number 1, Reverse Flashpoint. The Flash Armageddon is currently an ongoing 5-part crossover taking place in the first 5 episodes of Flash Season 8. However, in episode 4, spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1, it's revealed that Eobard Thawne, who looks like Wells again, but is using his real name, creates his own version of Flashpoint, where thanks to the new negative still force, instead of saving Barry's mother, he manages to kill Barry as a child, as he set out to do so many years ago. Or I guess Will set out to do. I don't know, time travel is weird, man. Anyway, he kills Barry as a child and then takes his place at CCPD the night the accelerator exploded, resulting in him becoming the Flash. And as this episode takes place, one night away from marrying Iris West. Yeah, so basically, Thawne changed the timeline so that he was actually the Flash. No imitation, no fake outs, he was truly the Flash. Like in this scenario, Speed Force chose him. And Barry was the Reverse Flash, even connected to the negative Speed Force, and having the classic red lightning and yellow suit. And as Damien Dark said, that is a work of evil art.
Number 10, costume destroyed. I mean, this is definitely something Reverse Flash recovered from as it happened during his first appearance, but still, it sucks to have your costume destroyed, especially one as powerful as Thawne's was initially. During his first appearance, it's Barry's old costume which Thawne randomly finds that gives him his super speed. Wearing it makes him speedy, so in the end, when he crosses paths with Barry Allen's The Flash, Allen is certain to take the costume from Professor Zoom after defeating him. He not only takes it, but is also sure to burn it up so he can never use it again. Of course, for Professor Zoom, as frustrating as this may have been at the time, it would only be a minor setback for the villain. Number 9, love denied. In a weird turn of events, Eobard Thawne appears to Iris West and claims he is in love with her. Of course, we can't really trust that this is true. It could have just been a ploy to mess with Barry had she agreed to be with Thawne. But either way, Iris refuses Thawne's advances. Iris would rather die than be with him, which is exactly what Thawne had in mind. Suffering either from a bruised ego or simply looking to find a new way to mess with Barry after Iris refused to go with him, Thawne killed her by phasing his hand through her brain, but making it solid momentarily when it was still in there. Ick. Although having your heart broken is never nice, this is no way to react to someone declining your advances, Thawne. Number 8, tricked into returning home. Following Crisis on Infinite Earths, Eobard Thawne shows up in that current continuity and attempts to impersonate Barry Allen. After a mental break and in a state of disillusion, Thawne actually believes in fact that he is Barry Allen. Barry at this time was gone, believed dead after the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and as a result, Wally West clues into the fact that this isn't Barry Allen, but an imposter. Wally then tricks Thawne into returning to the 25th century. Upon his return, Thawne also seems to have lost his memory of this event and only has an unexplainable hatred for Barry Allen and the remains of his own old costume as clues as to what exactly happened to him. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder, if you love lists about The Flash as much as I love giving them to you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 7, becoming The Flash's #1 fan. I don't know if you believe in destiny, but if you do, then this bit of history from Eobard's past is likely one of the worst things to have happened to the character. Thawne grew up in a future and is initially from the 25th century. During his time growing up there, he became obsessed with The Flash, kinda idolized him, and wanted to be just like his hero. Sounds nice, right? But Eobard Thawne's admiration for Barry Allen would set him down a dark path that he'd never be able to turn back from, even if he tried. In becoming a Flash fan, Thawne had confirmed his own irreversible dark destiny. Number 6, his mother's death. There is another character who is also known as Reverse Flash named Daniel West, who first appeared during the New 52 in the 2012 run of The Flash in issue number 0. Daniel West's story is possibly more tragic than Professor Eobard Thawne's, in some spots at least. In Daniel's origin story, his mother died in childbirth, and his father forever blamed him for this, seeing it as his child's fault. While his father treated him badly as a child because of this and turned to drink, his sister Iris tried to protect him from their father's anger. However, Daniel's mistreatment created a sense of frustration and anger within him too that one day boiled over, causing him to push his father down the stairs in retaliation. This set Daniel down a darker path and also ruined his relationship with his sister. Number 5. Witnessed. Daniel West, as the Reverse Flash, dreamt of repairing his relationship with his sister Iris, and blamed his father for everything awful that had ever happened to him, believing the best way to actually fix his relationship with Iris would be to go back in time and kill his father to prevent his younger self from ever getting angry enough to push his dad down the stairs, and to prevent, any of the mistreatment that would happen to him thereafter. Daniel ended up with powers that allowed him to drain the Speed Force energy out of others touched by it in order to turn back time. Using this ability, he managed to get enough of a charge to go back and attempt to change his own past. But his younger self and Iris arrived home just in time to witness the attempted murder of their father by Reverse Flash, and this only, of course, ended up creating more trauma for Iris and created a larger rift between them. In fact, a rift that would probably never be repaired. Number 4. Killed by Batman. And let's go back to Thawne now for a bit. During the events of Flashpoint, Professor Zoom ends up murdered by Batman. True story. He had carefully guarded himself against Barry by becoming a living paradox. Pretty smart. In issue number 5 of Flashpoint from 2011, he brags to Barry about this very fact after revealing that it was the Flash and not him that messed up the timeline, thereby creating the Flashpoint timeline. However, what he wasn't expecting and didn't count for was that Batman would be around to find a loophole. Even in the Flashpoint reality, Batman is the master of exploiting people's weaknesses. And Thomas Wayne's Batman does so this time around by catching Thawne unawares. Rising up after taking a beating from the villain, Batman runs him through with a sword, killing Thawne. Well, at least the Thawne of that continuity. Of course, Thawne, I feel like, is never gone. He would be back. Number 3, his mother's death. On Prime Earth, Eobard Thawne's origins are a little bit different. Instead of growing up idolizing the Flash, Thawne became a villain as a result of a few traumatic events in his past. One such meaningful event in his life that mirrors one that he is often responsible for making happen in Barry's life in the comics was the death of his mother. Thawne's mother was actually killed by his father, and even worse, a younger Eobard happened to witness this happen. Obviously, him destroying Barry Allen's family life was a way of him making things feel more fair, and also trying to corrupt Allen by traumatizing him as he himself had been corrupted and traumatized. Thawne is also known for his belief in balance within the Speed Force, so this could also be his own twisted attempt at evening the scales. Number 2, discovering the truth. One of the worst things to happen to Eobard, and something that would cement his role as Barry's worst and of course best villain, was when he went back in time to meet Barry and visited the Flash Museum. Eobard Thawne, you see, idolized Barry and looked up to the Flash as a hero because he wanted to be just like him. Unfortunately, due to a predestination paradox, he would learn upon traveling back in time to meet his hero that he, Eobard Thawne, Professor Zoom, would later become Allen's greatest villain. This shocking revelation would drive him insane and ironically turn him into the villain that he would become. Number 1, learning the truth of his ancestry. One of the most shocking revelations in comics has to be when we all learned, Thawne included, of his connection to the Allens, and how he was actually related to them. What? So all this time, he had only been causing pain to his own family, at least his family by blood. Eobard Thawne, it turns out, was the descendant of Malcolm Thawne, who was actually the twin brother of Barry Allen. The twins were separated at birth, with Malcolm being raised by adoptive parents who believed they were actually his biological parents, and Barry being raised by their birth parents, the Allens. When Thawne learns of this, it only adds to his frustration and anger, as it makes him once more face the facts that he was destined to become Barry's true nemesis, and that he can never escape this fate or escape Barry Allen.
Number 9, Zero Gravity. This one was introduced during DC's Legends of Tomorrow Season 2. It was during the episode Moonshot. Ray and Eobard are on a shuttle headed for the moon, and it is during that episode that it's revealed that when there is zero gravity, Reverse Flash's speed just doesn't work. So he isn't able to actually attack and kill Ray, which is what he wanted to do. Now, that is a very effective way to disable a speedster. But at the same time, it's hard to think of many moments when you would be battling a speedster somewhere in space. But hey, it's a cool thing to know. And a very scary thought for someone with speed abilities, if they're ever, stuck in space, fighting someone. Number 8, the cold. This weakness has not only been shown to hurt the Reverse Flash, but other speedsters as well. In the Arrowverse, Eobard was knocked out after being hit with Captain Cold's cold gun. Also, Barry has been incapacitated when he enters certain cold environments. I mean, there was a point in Season 5 where he was fighting Caitlin Snow's father, Dr. Thomas Snow, who was also known as the villain, Icicle, and the room he was in was so cold that he wasn't even able to run or basically move at all. It was only when he started to feel the heat that he was able to recover. The only thing that kept him from dying was his speed healing. A normal human would have died much sooner in that kind of harsh, cold environment. So, someone like the Reverse Flash, it would also affect them if he was in a room that was just as cold as the one Barry was in. Number 7. Bullets. Bullets are something that are very scary for all speedsters, basically. Depending on where they get shot, their speed healing might not be able to save them. For example, look at Eobard Thawne in the Flashpoint paradox. He was shot in the head by Batman. Normally, someone like Reverse Flash would be able to move out of the way of a bullet, but they also have to be paying attention and, are not distracted. If they are shot in the arm or leg and are able to remove the bullet, then their speed healing would be able to kick in and heal the wound much faster than the average human. But again, it all depends on where they end up getting shot. Number 6, nanites, courtesy of Ray Palmer. I just had to say it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a very famous line from Season 1 of The Flash. It's said by Oliver Queen when he is fighting the Reverse Flash. He shoots him with an arrow full of nanites and then temporarily disables his speed, and then the two of them proceed to fight, hand to hand. Now, because of that, it just shows how scary nanites can be for speedsters. If they are injected with them, it takes away their speed, making them essentially human, and therefore they could be killed. Eobard was eventually able to reverse the effects of the nanites, no pun intended, but if Oliver was able to put an arrow through him before that, he would have been dead if he was shot with one. Number 5, Time Wraiths. Time Wraiths were created for the Arrowverse, as far as I know. They could have popped up in the comics, although I didn't really see anything about that. I could be wrong though. If I am, let me know down in those comments below. In the Arrowverse, Time Wraiths are these scary beings that go after speedsters who mess with the timeline. Now, they didn't go after Eobard because, as he stated, he knew what he was doing. They only go after speedsters who don't know what they're doing, like when Barry goes back in time and interacts with himself, or something along those lines. They are there to make sure that the timeline stays intact. They have gone after Barry multiple times, most recently during the Flash's 100th episode during Season 5 when Barry and Nora went back in time. But if Eobard went back in time and he was doing something wrong, the Time Wraiths would go after him and could essentially take him away. Number 4, Cicada's Dagger. Cicada in the comics is slightly different than Cicada in the Arrowverse. In the Arrowverse, his dagger is actually able to basically take away the powers of any metahuman, if it is in close proximity to them. As you can probably tell, that caused a lot of trouble for Team Flash, or any metahuman for that matter. Cicada was also just really powerful. He had enhanced strength and was able to leap high distances. The dagger was actually being used to take away Eobard's powers in the future. He was in a prison cell and everyone assumed that they were just using metahuman dampeners, but no, they were actually using Cicada's dagger to keep him from using his powers. It was eventually destroyed though, and that's when he went on basically a big killing spree, killing tons and tons of guards. Number 3, Black Flash. Black Flash has appeared in both the comics and the Arrowverse. He is this insanely scary creature who in the comics just appears when speedsters are close to death, but in the Arrowverse he's sent to come after speedsters. In DC's Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, Eobard Thawne was on the run from Black Flash. He was after him because he was a rogue time remnant and didn't belong in that timeline. Eobard had to constantly keep moving so that Black Flash wasn't able to find him. Eventually he did though, and took Eobard away. That was after Eobard made dozens and dozens of time remnants to stop the Legends. Man, that guy is just so friggin' powerful. Number 2, The Flash. This one applies for both the comics and the Arrowverse. Eobard is so obsessed with the Flash that, in a way, it always seems to be his undoing. He always wants to ruin his life. And also, the Flash is really one of the only ones that can actually stop him. The two have a massive rivalry, and it seems like just when you think it's over, Eobard comes up with some new scary plan to mess with Barry. But it's usually the Flash that is the cause of his undoing. Yet, for some reason, he always wants to go after him. I mean, I guess that's what makes their stories so great. They are forever tied to one another. Number 1. Himself. Yep. Himself. Eobard is a little bit, how do you say this, unstable? He became so obsessed with the Flash that he literally wanted to become him. I mean, he even recreated an accident that gave Barry his powers. It didn't work the first time though, and he became really scarred. But then he ended up going back in time because he wanted to meet the Flash, using the cosmic treadmill. He ends up going back further than he thought, and while he was there, he noticed these posters that showed the Flash fighting some other speedster. Turns out, when you look closer, it said the name of that speedster was Reverse Flash, also known as Eobard Thawne. This, of course, made him snap and turned him into the villain we all know today. Now, he is just full of hate and will stop at nothing to hurt the Flash, even though that in reality he is really only hurting himself in the process. I mean, all this wouldn't have happened if he didn't try to recreate and become the Flash and then go back in time to meet the Flash. I mean, he was kind of the cause of his own undoing in that way, and that is why his biggest weakness is himself.
What's going on, Nerd Squad? It's your boy Johnny Rogers here hosting today for you on the greatest nerd channel of them all. So if you happen to be new here, we post daily content on all things nerdy for your entertainment. So to never miss another video, tap that subscribe button. Plus, make sure you stay all the way to the end because you won't believe the power in our #1 spot. Whew, so powerful, you're not gonna believe it. Professor Eobard Thawne was a scientist and criminal in the 25th century and had an odd fascination with the Flash. His research of the Speed Force ultimately led him to acquire similar powers to his idol, and therefore referring to himself as Reverse Flash. It's also important to note that most of these powers are things that not even the Flash himself can do. Now before we get started, don't forget to leave us a comment down below with which Speed Force power is your favorite, and while you ponder that, let's jump right into the top 10 superpowers you didn't know Reverse Flash actually has. In at number 10, faster than the Flash. For those of you who are unaware, one of Reverse Flash's greatest powers that he leans on when fighting with his nemesis is speed, which seems surprising considering the fact that Barry Allen is arguably still considered the fastest man alive. Due to Thawne creating his own negative version of the Speed Force, it made it possible to tap into powers that most speedsters can't even reach. One of those is superhuman speed, faster than the fastest man alive himself. His ability to move at such great speeds gives him the power of superhuman force as well, meaning a punch to the Flash at Reverse Flash top speed would be devastating. In at number 9, sense alternate realities. In the events that led up to Flashpoint, what seemed at first to be a doppelganger of the Flash turned out to be another version of Barry Allen with the codename Hot Pursuit. The only way we as an audience could have discovered this though was by way of Reverse Flash's power. Reverse Flash has the unique ability of being able to sense whether or not people are from an alternate reality. Sounds a bit pointless, but it actually came in handy. All of the universes in the DCU vibrate at different frequencies, and when New Barry arrived, Reverse Flash could sense this. Eobard knew that Hot Pursuit was from an alternate reality just by feeling that he was vibrating at a different frequency than his own. In at number 8, age alteration. Age alteration, a power that we all wish we could have as we got older, and in the beginning of the Flashpoint series we were able to see this power put on full display. At first Eobard was believed to be gone, but he was actually just disguising himself as a child the whole time. When he realized that the Speed Force is simply made up of time, he could tap into this and use it to his advantage. With this unparalleled knowledge, Eobard could control time and even use it however he pleased. Now he could de-age himself or even steal time from his enemies. In at number 7, the Sonic Snap. In the Flash Rebirth miniseries, Reverse Flash made a comeback in a big way and absolutely terrorized the Flash family while doing it. As we've learned so far, the negative Speed Force comes with all of these different abilities, and some the Flash fam were absolutely not even prepared for. To make matters worse, he got a few pointers from the evil speedster villain Zoom. After being chased by Kid Flash and Max Mercury, Eobard took a moment to stop his assailants in their tracks by simply snapping his fingers. That little snap isn't used often by Reverse Flash, but man, when he did, it knocked the hero into next week. The Sonic Snap is so strong it completely bowls over even the fastest of enemies chasing him. Plus it most likely causes huge ripples in reality itself. In at number 6, change his eye color. This may not be his strongest superpower per se, but Eobard Thawne's ability to change his eye color to red certainly sets him apart from all of the other Flash characters. As a villain, just changing his eyes to that bright red makes everything he says and does that much more menacing. Eobard can do this by concentrating his red lightning and focusing its effects towards his eyes, which gives off that evil look. You gotta admit those red eyes do add a lot to the comic book pages, and even though it's not a physically useful power, it does get the message across that he means business. In at number 5, duplicate himself. We got to see a bit of this superpower on display in the CW's Flash series as well as DC's Legends of Tomorrow. This power is also referred to as time remnants or temporal duplicates. Due to his metahuman time travel abilities, it's possible for Eobard to rupture time in such a way that he brings forth copies of himself that have been preserved in the Speed Force. Again, a lot of his power comes by way of him being able to tap into that negative Speed Force, unleashing its true potential. These aren't just your regular duplicates though. Reverse Flash can create doppelgangers that can actually communicate with other people. Scary stuff. In at number 4, break protective auras. Going back to the Flash Rebirth miniseries in issue number 4, we saw the Reverse Flash unleash some more surprising powers. The Speed Force provides this powerful aura of protection that keeps them safe from all of the harsh effects that come with moving that fast. What they weren't expecting though was that a villain would come along and just smash right through that. Because the common Speed Force that the Flash family draws from is positive, that meant that Eobard's negative Speed Force was more than capable of a countermeasure. As he's fighting with Jay Garrick, Jay tried to take off only to have Reverse Flash to come up behind him and push him forwards, breaking through his protective aura and severely burning Jay in the process. In at number 3, erase people from existence. All of the Flash family that operate with the Speed Force have the ability to travel through time, but as we saw with Barry Allen and Flashpoint, they experience time travel with a lot more consequences. Again, this goes back to the differences between positive and negative Speed Force. Just because they experience consequences for time travel doesn't necessarily mean it works the opposite way. Eobard's powers are similar, but allow for much more leeway. His version of time travel introduces much more of a chance to manipulate, even being able to eliminate people from existence with no negative repercussions. In fact, the concept of time and reality will just bend to whatever he did to those timelines, meaning he could erase someone from their reality without anyone ever noticing. In at number 2, regeneration. The Flash Volume 5 issue number 23 was a shocking testament to how truly powerful Reverse Flash is. At the start of the comic book, Eobard looked to be nothing more than a pile of bones on an examiner's table, but Barry knew it was all a ruse. Even while looking at his enemy's deceased body, he knew that it was just another one of his tricks. Then before the next page, we saw a little spark of life in the eyes of Eobard. By the end of the issue, he had fully regenerated back to his original state and was waiting for Iris West when she got home with Wally. This means that Reverse Flash is able to repair and regenerate entire cells even if he's been dead for a while. Guy's immortal. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, retrocognition. This power also became a pivotal part of the Reverse Flash's arsenal and was put on display in the Flash Volume 5 issue number 19. It was the power of memory, but not in the sense that we think of having a good memory. After lightning struck his cell at Iron Heights, Thawne suddenly could remember his entire life before the Flashpoint, which also included memories of Thomas Wayne killing him. The more shocking part about this power was that these memories had been erased from his mind following Flashpoint, yet still when he broke out of his cell, everything came flooding back and now he was more ready than ever to take his revenge.